Mr. Parker, the orphan keeper, was walking around the dining room. All the kids called him Mr. Angry Bubble because when he got angry, he blew out his cheeks and they looked huge and round. He got mad pretty often, especially at me. Laura Garcia, come out, you brat. I know you're here. I got out of my hiding place after he finally left. Hi, I'm Laura, the brat he was looking for. I'm 14, but I don't look a day over 10. Despite my size, I'm quite a troublemaker. Thanks to my height, I could hide in tiny places like that saucepan. Hit that like button and I'll explain what I was up to. I grew up in an orphanage and didn't know anything about my parents. However, that didn't bother me. After all, the other kids at the orphanage were my family. I was sort of their leader. The teachers and the head of the orphanage couldn't stand me because I was always doing all sorts of things to help those in need and make my friends happy. For example, one day, I stole some stupid painting from Mr. Parker's office and exchanged it for ice cream for all the kids. Come on, guys, eat it before it melts. They called me a troublemaker with a heart of gold. I was also friends with a group of traveling musicians from my homeland, Argentina. Whenever they needed a place to spend the night, I would sneak them into the orphanage. Of course, my teachers weren't happy about that. One day, I got some food from the dining hall and wanted to give it to a family I was friends with. They were good people, but rarely had enough money to buy sweets for their children. However, Mr. Parker caught me, and I had to hide in a saucepan. As soon as he left, I took my backpack, climbed out the window, and headed to the Rogers. Their kids hugged me, overjoyed. It's Laura! She brought us something delicious! Help yourself, cowboy! Their mother sighed sadly and said that taking food that was meant for orphans didn't sit right with her. Don't even worry about it. Our keeper would have stolen it anyway. He's a crook. He sells the property of the orphanage to buy himself expensive clothes and dumb paintings. Mrs. Rogers made some awesome pasta for everyone. Yummy! If you open a diner, you'd be millionaires. Thank you, Laura. You have a heart of gold. When I came back to the orphanage, I was scolded once again. I was used to it, but the other kids that covered for me got punished as well. That made my blood boil. So I composed a cheeky song about Mr. Parker to get back at him and sang it on camera. By the way, I had a beautiful voice. What do you think? The angry bubble orphan keeper, I've never met anyone cheaper. He's mean and vile and did us wrong. If you agree, then sing along. My friends and I uploaded that video to YouTube, and it blew up. Everyone started talking about our orphanage and turned on Mr. Parker. He hushed up the scandal, but only just. Meanwhile, I was in for a world of trouble. Ever since then, the grown-ups did everything to make my life unbearable. They punished me every day, made me wash the other kids' dishes, and cleaned up after everyone. I quickly got tired of it and realized I wasn't going to get off easy this time. So I decided to run away. But you have nowhere to go. I'd rather live on the street with wandering musicians than put up with this any longer. I was saying goodbye to my friends when someone burst into the room, surrounded by bodyguards. Wow, it was a popular singer, Samantha! Where is she? Where is that little miracle? Then she saw me and threw her arms around me. Careful, you're covered in glitter. Were you looking for me? It turned out that she had seen my viral video and liked the way I looked and sang. That's why that diva decided to adopt me. Your life's about to change, baby. All my friends were jealous of me. The teachers cried tears of joy when they found out I was leaving. I wasn't sure Samantha was fit to be a parent, but agreed to be adopted by her to get out of the orphanage. I moved into a luxurious mansion. It was so huge that I had to move around it on a scooter. Living there was fun. I had my own room, and there were enough snacks to fill the pool. What I didn't like, though, was that my new mom bought us identical clothes. I hated rhinestones and dresses. You look wonderful. It's like we're sisters. We really did look a lot alike. Our hair, eyes, smiles. However, that's where the similarities ended. Samantha turned out to be incredibly arrogant. She turned the lives of the maids into a living hell and went ballistic at the slightest provocation. I asked for water with 2 ice cubes. Why are there 3 of them in my glass then, huh? Bring me a new one. Yeah, the wealth and fame clearly went to her head. Samantha treated me like a lapdog. She dragged me to parties, photo shoots, and interviews, and bragged about me like I was an expensive gadget. People kept pinching my cheeks and saying how similar we looked. Laura is the cutest. Easy, lady. I'm not a plush toy. Laura, mind your tongue. You are no longer an orphan in rags. Don't forget about your new status. All she cared about was her freaking status. I didn't want to be a part of her glamorous world, but I didn't have much choice. One day, my adoptive mom dragged me to a recording studio and introduced me to her producer, Max. I impressed him too. Samantha, the adoption was a great idea. Your ratings have skyrocketed thanks to the kid. Try not to get into trouble again, though. It turned out she was constantly embroiled in all sorts of scandals. She disrupted concerts, shouted at the paparazzi, and asked for crazy fees. Her career suffered from it all, but Samantha didn't care. Despite it all, my new life had its advantages. For example, I now had more opportunities to help my friends. I brought my mom's old clothes to the orphanage. Jewelry and money were scattered all around the mansion. Samantha wasn't keeping watch over them, so I gave them to the Rogers and my musician friends. One day, Samantha went too far. Max brought us to a music award ceremony, but she refused to get out of the limo until the carpet was covered in gold sequins. Samantha, you're ruining your career. You are losing popularity as it is. This isn't the time to throw a tantrum. Your fans are waiting. She pouted and started to whine. I don't care about my fans. I'm a star. They will wait for me in the rain all night if I want them to. Oops. Unfortunately for her, at that moment, the limo door was opened by the driver and her fans heard her words. They didn't like the way Samantha spoke about them and she was booed. The next day, she left for yet another photo shoot and I stayed in the mansion. I didn't like being alone among all that luxury, so I decided to throw a party for my friends. I invited the kids from the orphanage, the musicians, and Mrs. Rogers with her children over. We ate pizzas and watched a movie. Everyone was having fun, and then Mrs. Rogers handed me a sweater that she had knitted herself. Let it warm your brave heart. You have no idea how much you helped us. She told me she'd use the jewelry I'd given her to open a small but cozy diner. Now, there was a chance they'd escape from poverty. Everyone hugged me and thanked me for the evening. I was so happy that I almost burst into tears. But then, the evil queen returned to her castle. Oops. What is this trash doing in my mansion? Samantha screeched like she had been bitten by wild bees. I tried to tell her that everything was fine. I just felt sad and called some friends over. I'll have to spray the house with pesticides now. I forbid you from talking to them again. Samantha stomped her foot and ordered the guards to throw my guests out. And then she snatched the sweater out of my hands and told me to flush it down the toilet. What had gotten into her? It pissed me off and we had our first serious fight. You're insufferable. Being a star doesn't give you the right to treat people like that. I've never met anyone as ungrateful as you. I gave you everything, but you're still keeping company with those beggars in rags. I was furious with her and ran to my room, but not before knocking all her awards off the shelf. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go back to the orphanage, but I couldn't put up with any more of Samantha's antics either. It wasn't in my nature. So, I decided to go back to my original plan, to run away and become a street musician. I was throwing things into my backpack when I suddenly heard Samantha crying in the hallway. At first, it made me smile. What, did the drama queen break a nail or something? But soon, she started to sob louder. I couldn't stand it any longer and decided to find out what happened. As I left the room, I saw Samantha sitting on the floor and scrolling through her phone in tears. It turned out that her behavior at that music award caused a real scandal. Her fans were enraged by the behavior of their idol and boycotted her. Samantha's concerts were canceled and she lost contracts with her sponsors. Well, that was just karma. Oh, Laura, I'm sorry I was so harsh. I'm so upset. Max said he was tired of my behavior and wouldn't work with me anymore. I'm so miserable. Of course, she had it coming. But for some reason, I felt sorry for her. I decided to stay with her while she was going through such a rough time. Well, you know me. I was always trying to help everyone. Samantha had to fire all the staff since she wasn't earning any money. It turned out she was completely helpless. She couldn't even make coffee or her bed without my help. I had to teach her everything. I don't get it. I tried to make scrambled eggs, but it doesn't look right. Oh, you should have broken the eggs before putting them on the frying pan. Why is everything so complicated? She was more helpless than a baby. Samantha sold her designer clothes and jewelry to pay the bills. However, we soon ran out of money anyway. Her career kept going down at the speed of an avalanche. Her haters did not let up, and soon enough, there was no trace of Samantha's fame or fortune left. But the worst thing was that we soon lost our home and ended up on the street. See that puddle? Do you think it rained here? Nope, those are Samantha's tears. She wasn't handling the changes well. I've lost everything. What are we supposed to do now? First of all, quit crying before I go deaf. Cheer up, there is always hope. She calmed down and said she had an idea. And then she dragged me to the house of her former maid and demanded she let us stay at her place. Of course, the woman was stunned by Samantha's nerve and told us to go away. My adoptive mom was genuinely confused. Seriously? When was the last time you were kind to anyone? Why would they help you? It soon got dark. We still had nowhere to spend the night. I called my friends from the orphanage, and they agreed to distract the guard so that Samantha and I could sneak inside. We settled down on an air mattress in the common room, and my friends brought us some food. At first, the former star kept whining. I want a suite with a jacuzzi and a salmon steak. But then, she saw the terrible conditions the children lived in. The Ice Queen realized they shared the little they had with us, and her heart melted. Guys, I'm sorry I called you trash. You are angels. That night, neither of us could fall asleep and had a heart-to-heart for the first time. Samantha said that she grew up in poverty. As soon as she achieved success, the money went to her head. I'm so ashamed of the way I acted. How could I be so arrogant and mean? Then she asked me why the conditions at the orphanage were so bad. I told her that its keeper was a crook, and everyone knew that he was stealing the money allocated to the kids he was supposed to take care of for. What a dung beetle. He should be in prison. We chatted until dawn and fell asleep hugging each other. Samantha was pretty cute now that she wasn't acting like a diva. The next morning, we decided that she needed to find a job. Luckily, I knew that Mrs. Rogers was looking for a dishwasher. She hired Samantha on the spot and let us stay over for a while. Whenever I had free time, I performed on the street with my musician friends. Some of the passerbys gave us change. Soon, Samantha and I managed to save up some money and rent a small apartment. All our friends were invited to the housewarming party. My adoptive mom even baked a pie. To be honest, it looked like a boulder. But she tried really hard. I'm sorry I was so rude to you. You are all wonderful people. Laura, you're a lifesaver. I love you. I love you too. Mom? She looked really touched as she hugged me. Having lost all our wealth, we gained something more valuable, a real family. Now, we lived modestly, but we're happy. I loved singing and seemed to be pretty great at it. More and more passersby stopped to listen to me. And one day, I saw a familiar face in the crowd. It was Max, Mom's former producer. He recognized me too. Laura, I didn't know you could sing. I'm glad to see you. How is Samantha? I told him about everything we had to go through after Mom had lost her fame and proudly said that she had changed and was no longer arrogant. Max was glad that the two of us became a real family. To my surprise, he invited me to his studio. You could become a real star. I could help you succeed. It would have been foolish to turn down such an offer. Of course I agreed. Soon, I recorded my first album with my musician friends. It became a hit and brought us fame. I got fans and became rich. Samantha and I bought a nice house. However, fame didn't go to my head. I stayed humble and kept helping my friends. One day, I asked my mom if she wanted to perform again, but she said no. I've been thinking about it, and I want to do something that really matters now. It turned out that she had been gathering documents and signatures to get Mr. Parker fired. Thanks to her, Mr. Angry Bubbles was going to prison. My mom became the new head of the orphanage. I was so proud of her. She had done a lot for those kids, and they loved her. We switched places. Now, I was a star, and my mom was doing charity work. But what mattered was, we got along. On weekends, we all came to Mrs. Rogers' diner. Help yourself to the pasta. Samantha said she also brought something delicious and put a plate of charred pizza on the table. Yeah, Mom's cooking hadn't got any better. I loved her anyway.
Konnichiwa, I'm Yui and I'm 12. Please like this video. Welcome to Japan. I was raised by my mom. Have you noticed how different we looked? I'd always wondered why I was so different from ordinary Japanese girls. None of my friends had blonde hair or light eyes. That's because you take after your father. He was Russian. Unfortunately, Dad died right after I was born. As far as I knew, we didn't even have any photos of him. So I just took Mom's word for it. Standing out so much in Japan wasn't easy. I was a black sheep wherever I went. The other kids avoided me, and some even made fun of me for the way I looked. Yui, you're just like Hermione from Harry Potter. Brave and quick-witted? Nah, I mean you're a half-blood too. That witch's name was Satomi. She was my classmate and always tried to turn my life into a living nightmare. Satomi was always picking on and making fun of me. She made me feel like an outcast. My life was by no means easy. It was hard for Mom to provide for both of us. Our house was more of a decrepit shack with a leaky roof. Mom sold fish at the market, and I changed into dirty rags and begged rich tourists for money after classes. I hated it, of course, but I did it to help Mom anyway. Still, I was afraid my classmates would find out about it and I would become the laughingstock again. One day, my fears almost became reality. I was begging tourists for money at the market as usual when Satomi saw me. Sir, spare a coin for a poor orphan? That beggar looks familiar. Wait, is that Yui? My classmate headed over in my direction, but I saw her and made a break for it. Luckily, I managed to hide behind a fish counter. Dang it, where is she? Never mind, I'll just film Yui begging for money next time. Everyone at school will have a good laugh. Satomi walked past me, and I breathed a sigh of relief. I was shaken. For the love of God, all I wanted was to be an ordinary kid and have enough money for basic needs. Was that too much to ask for? It seemed like some things just weren't meant to be. The next day, Satomi came to the market to get proof that I was a beggar. She crept up to me to try and take a photo, but I covered my face with my hands and tried to blend in with the crowd. Stop! I know it's you, Yui! I'd almost reached my hiding place when one of the passersby suddenly grabbed me and lifted me up into the air. It was a Japanese woman with blonde hair and light eyes, just like mine. She was wearing expensive clothes and had 2 huge bodyguards standing beside her. I was afraid they'd mistaken me for a thief. But then, tears of joy suddenly streamed down the woman's face. My daughter! I finally found you! I was so confused, it left me speechless. Satomi's eyes bugged out. She didn't even dare come closer and ran away without a word. The woman hugged me tight, put me back down, and bombarded me with questions. My poor girl! Did you have to live on the streets like an orphan? It's okay. Mommy's here now. Everything's going to be all right. I didn't understand what was going on. One of the bodyguards asked that strange woman, Miss Kiku, would you like us to help walk the girl to your limo? Of course. We're going home. My jaw dropped to the floor. A limo? Home? Wait, hold on a second. I didn't sign up for that. I jerked away and ran like a bat out of hell. Sweetie, where are you going? I ran straight to Mom. I thought she would hide me, but I was in for a surprise. Miss Kiku, this girl's name is Yui. She has no one to look after her, so your kindness spooked her. Mom leaned close to my ear and quickly told me in a whisper that I should play along. Act like you're her daughter. I'll explain everything later. With those words, she pushed me towards Miss Kiku and gave me a sly wink. I didn't know what it all meant, but decided to listen to my mom. So I took the rich woman's hand and we got into her limo. Soon, I found myself in Miss Kiku's house. Or should I say mansion? It looked luxurious enough for an emperor to live in. The maids there helped me wash up, combed my hair, and dressed me in an expensive dress. I hardly recognized myself when I looked in the mirror. Wow, I look like a doll! Miss Kiku came up behind me and looked into the mirror too. See how similar we look? You must have wondered why your appearance was so extraordinary, right, sweetheart? I hesitantly nodded, and she told me her dad was an ordinary Japanese man, but her mom was Swedish. Kiku took after her mom. That's why she had blonde hair and light eyes. Yui, you have your grandmother's eyes and her blonde hair. I wanted to say she was mistaken and I wasn't her daughter, but Mom had asked me to play along, so I kept quiet. Besides, Miss Kiku had an amazing house. I was given a huge room full of expensive toys. She also had a personal chef who cooked a ton of delicious dishes for me. I felt like a real princess the whole day. Before going to bed, the owner of the mansion came to my room to wish me goodnight. Sleep, baby. We still have so much to talk about. I really liked it there, but kept tossing and turning and couldn't stop thinking about my mom. While I was enjoying all that luxury, she was sleeping in our tiny shack. As soon as everyone had fallen asleep, I climbed out the window and I headed home. Yui, did you run away? I can't leave you. Besides, I need to know what's going on. Sweetie, this is our chance to start over. Act like Miss Kiku's long-lost daughter and bring me her money and jewelry. That isn't right. What isn't right is that some people get everything while others beg for food on the street. If you don't want to live in poverty your whole life, we need to fool Miss Kiku. She is the richest woman in Japan. She won't even notice if a few of her jewels go missing. That gave me pause. On the one hand, lying was bad. But on the other hand, I didn't want to spend the rest of my life begging for money at the market. In the end, I agreed to do it for myself and my mom. I came back to the mansion and snuck into my room before sunrise. The next day, I acted like I really was the daughter of the richest woman in Japan. At breakfast, I asked her to tell me about the day her daughter, that is, me, went missing. Miss Kiku told me the tragic story. Oh, you were probably so young that you don't remember anything. 10 years ago, when you were only 2, we were on the beach with your dad. We only turned away for a minute, but our baby had already disappeared. We looked for you for so long, but the searches yielded nothing. Her happy life was over. Kiku wiped her tears with a napkin and said that her husband left her after that, and she fell into depression, but she never gave up hope of finding her daughter. She hired the best detectives in the world year after year, but it was all for nothing. Until yesterday, fate has finally smiled on me, and you came home. My dear girl, I almost burst into tears as I listened to that miserable tale. I felt sorry for Miss Kiku. She had all the wealth in the world, but had been so miserable for years anyway. I couldn't hurt her feelings and admit that I wasn't her daughter, so I kept pretending. I didn't remember my parents, and I was homeless all these years, but I still went to school. Thank goodness we found each other. The weekend came to an end, and I went back to school. As expected, Satomi had already told everyone about the scene she'd seen at the market. My classmates crowded around me and bombarded me with questions as soon as they saw me. I saw you begging on the street, and then some rich lady caught you. What was that, huh? Spill. Begging? Satomi, I think you've got me confused with someone else. I'm the daughter of the richest woman in Japan. I don't need to beg anyone for anything. As proof, I showed her the phone that Miss Kiku had given me. It was the newest model. Everyone gasped in admiration and started whispering to each other. Satomi's face twisted. She didn't believe me. I know you're hiding something, and I will prove it. I wanted to go bonkers on her. Did she have nothing better to do? Was messing with me her only hobby? I'd had it with her. Still, I tried to look calm and even forced a smile. You're wasting your time, Satomi, but I wish you luck anyway. After classes, I returned to Miss Kiku's mansion. As soon as everyone fell asleep that night, I left my room and threw everything that looked expensive in my backpack. Some cash, jewelry, and a gold statuette. After that, I climbed out the window and brought my loot to my real mother. I'd never seen her smile so happily before. Well done, Yui. Keep up the good work and we'll be rich in no time. I didn't like stealing from Miss Kiku because she was so kind to me. I knew that this was the only way for us to live without a worry in the world, just like I'd always wanted. I hugged Mom goodbye and I headed back to the mansion. I was about to get into my room through my window when someone appeared behind me.
Gotcha. I caught you red-handed, you little liar.
Oh no! It was one of Miss Kiku's bodyguards! He said that they had followed me and overheard my talk with my mom.
We know you aren't the boss's kid. You're a cunning thief.
Are you gonna tell the truth to Miss Kiku?
We should, but we'll let you keep your dirty secret if you do something for us.
The goons smirked and said that they wanted to get a cut too.
That rich wacko pays tons of money to private detectives instead of raising our salaries. We're sick of it. Give us some of what you've stolen and we'll keep quiet about your lies.
Holy heck! Their greed knew new bounds. I couldn't let them ruin our plan though, so I agreed to their terms. For a while, there was no issue. Miss Kiku and I spent our days like mother and daughter. After the sunset, I would steal her jewelry and hand it over to my mother and the bodyguards. Miss Kiku didn't notice anything because she wanted my lies to be true. She believed with all her heart that I was her long-lost daughter and genuinely cared for me. The guilt was eating me alive. Lying to Miss Kiku was getting harder by the day. My mom and the bodyguards got a taste for easy money and soon were no longer satisfied with the things I stole for them.
Yui, this isn't enough. We'll never get rich like this.
As if that wasn't enough, Satomi kept being a pain in the butt. She was constantly following me and trying to find out the truth. One day, she almost saw me meet my mom at the market. I felt trapped, even though I was surrounded by luxury and wanted for nothing. This wasn't the life I'd always dreamed of. It wasn't peaceful, and I wasn't being honest. Then, one day, I snuck out of the mansion again and brought the loot to our shack. Mom wasn't there, so I decided to hide it under her bed. To my surprise, I found a box with our family photo in it. Mom, Dad, and I were in it, but for some reason, he looked like an ordinary Japanese man, even though Mom always said he was Russian. Something wasn't adding up. At that moment, Mom walked into the house. I waved the photo in front of her face and demanded an explanation.
Oh, I didn't want you to find out like this. You're not really my daughter. 10 years ago, my husband and I found you near a beach. Soon after that, my husband died and I was so lonely I decided to keep you. I told you your dad was Russian so you wouldn't ask me any questions about your unusual looks.
Can you believe it? The woman I'd always thought was my mother had been lying to me my whole life. It didn't matter now, though. After all, I realized I really could be Miss Kiku's daughter. I didn't say anything. I just took the photo and ran to the mansion at lightning speed. My heart sank when I arrived there and saw Satomi. The worst thing was that she was talking to Miss Kiku. And here's your fake daughter. Oh, I'm beyond happy. Yui's real mother is a poor fishmonger. I saw them meeting up at the market in secret.
Yui, what is this girl talking about? Have you been lying to me?
I plucked up the courage and I told her that at first I really had pretended to be her daughter so greedy people could cash in on her grief. But then I found out the truth. I considered that woman from the market to be my mother, but I just found out that I've been lied to my whole life. She and her husband found me near a beach 10 years ago. I showed Miss Kiku the photo as proof. You see, I don't look like my parents because we aren't related. Miss Kiku, I think I might really be your daughter. To my surprise, Miss Kiku didn't seem pissed off. She burst into tears of joy and pulled me into a tight hug.
It's okay, Yui. I'm not mad at you for lying. What matters is we're together now.
Satomi couldn't accept defeat and lost it. She growled that it wasn't over and ran away. But I didn't care about her anymore. I hugged my real mom and believed with all my heart that nothing bad would happen to me again. Everything finally fell into place. I was on cloud 9, not because I inherited a fortune, but because I found a loving and caring mother who'd been searching for me for 10 whole years. Oh, right! You should have seen the faces of those shameless bodyguards. When I informed them they'd no longer be getting Miss Kiku's money from me. You have nothing else to blackmail me with, so forget about it. Better yet, start looking for a new job. You don't deserve to work for someone as kind as my mom.
How could a brat outsmart us?
It was nice to feel like a winner. As for the woman who raised me, she kept coming to the mansion for a long time, hoping to make up with me. I forgave her, but I couldn't forget that she'd been using me. That's why I calmly asked her to stay out of my life from then on. I finally found peace, and I didn't want to lose it again. Unfortunately, things soon took a turn for the worse. One morning, a car drove up to the mansion. 2 people got out of it, a serious-looking man and a girl my age. The girl had blonde hair just like me. What a strange coincidence. My stomach was in knots. I had a bad feeling about this. When they walked into the mansion, I overheard their conversation with my mom. The man turned out to be a private detective hired by Ms. Kiku. He was saying he'd finally found her long-lost daughter. The man even had a DNA test result that confirmed what he was saying. Ms. Kiku looked at the girl confused and then threw her arms around her.
You look just like your grandmother. Without a doubt, you are my real daughter.
My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Was Kiku not my mom after all? I felt like a stranger in that house. I left a note wishing Miss Kiku and her daughter happiness, packed up all my things, and snuck out through the window. I wandered the streets as I didn't know where to go. I'd lost everything and felt like nothing in the world could make me smile again. When I was passing by my school, I ran into Satomi. She smirked at me and said she'd finally found out the truth about my origins. My dad works in the city archives. I snuck in there, looked through all the documents, and found out your real parents live in a neighboring province. They lost you 10 years ago. I even have their address. You're not the daughter of the richest woman in Japan after all. Take that. Satomi threw a note with my parents' address on it at me and burst into laughter. She must have thought I'd be gutted. But instead of getting upset, I hugged her, overjoyed. Thank you, Satomi. You have no idea how much you've helped me. Then I ran to the nearest bus stop. Satomi was left staring after me in confusion. What was that? I'm going to go find my real parents. I hope I'll finally get to enjoy the life I've always dreamed of. So this isn't the end, but only the beginning of my adventures.
Hi, I'm Violet. My parents were great, and so was my life. But it only took one day for me to lose everything. It was a rainy day. Lightning was flashing in the sky, and the wind was so strong it knocked people off their feet. I called my parents after basketball practice and asked them to give me a ride home. We'll be there soon, sweetie. However, Mom and Dad never came for me. They got into a car accident and died. I was too young, and no one told me any details. That tragedy was just the beginning of my misfortunes. For the first few weeks, I stayed at Mr. Olaf's house. He was a good friend of my parents and agreed to take me in for a while. Mr. Olaf and his wife knew what I was going through, so they were kind to me. It infuriated their son. Klaus must have felt like I was stealing his parents' attention because he hated me from the moment we met. I wish that orphan would leave. I was too devastated to deal with him. Soon enough, a social worker came over and said I could no longer live with Mr. Olaf. Violet, you're going to be staying with your Aunt Matilda. Finally, I'll help you pack. Thanks, I'll manage. Aunt Matilda owned a small bakery and seemed like a kind person, but it was like I had a bad luck charm. As soon as I arrived, she hit a rough patch. Her car broke down. Then someone broke a window in her house with a stone. One day, there was even a fire in her bakery. That became the last straw for my kind aunt, and she ran out of patience. I'm sorry, Violet, but you bring bad luck. I can't take care of you any longer. She refused to take custody of me, and the social worker, his name was Poe by the way, brought me to my great-uncle. His family wasn't nice, to be honest. They owned a diner and treated me like free labor. One day, I had to wash the dishes at their diner for 12 hours straight. Eventually, I couldn't stand it any longer and came running to Mr. Olaf. My uncle's family is awful. Please adopt me. Violet, I'd love to, but they won't let me do that as long as you have relatives who can take you in. There was nothing I could do but leave. Klaus followed me outside and pounced on me. Don't you dare come here again. You're a bad luck charm. Even your parents died because of you. Shut up. I didn't want that jerk to see me cry, so I ran back to my great-uncle. Soon, luck turned its back on him as well. He blamed me for everything and gave up custody just like my aunt. It made me believe that I attracted trouble like a magnet. Klaus was right. I am a bad luck charm. Poe tried a few more times with other relatives of mine, but sooner or later, they all kicked me out. I turned 14 and ended up in an orphanage. My roommate was a girl called Melanie, and her friendly smile lit up the world around her. Let's be friends. You should stay away from me for your own good. I bring bad luck. Haha, that's nonsense. I have good intuition and my gut's telling me you are a good person. She sat down next to me and told me a secret. We're not allowed to keep animals here, but I found a puppy and hid him in the yard. Do you want to see him? I hesitantly nodded and we went outside. I named him Lucky. He's so cute. The puppy jumped on my lap and started licking my face, but then Lucky noticed a cat and gave chase. Before I could blink, the puppy was in the middle of a busy road. I told you I brought bad luck. I ran after Lucky, grabbed him, and then saw an oncoming car. The brakes screeched, and the car stopped just a few feet away from us. A terrified woman got out of it. Wow, it was a famous singer, Selena Sunny. Are you okay? I nodded, and the woman gave me a weird look. Then she smiled sweetly and offered to walk me home. Thank you, ma'am, but I'm an orphan and I don't have a home. This is the orphanage I live at. Don't you have relatives who could take care of you? I'm nothing but trouble, so all my relatives abandoned me. Selena's eyebrows rose in surprise, but then she smiled warmly again. I'll walk you to the orphanage then. And she did. Before leaving, Miss Sunny went to the office of the head of the orphanage and they talked for a long time. The next morning, I was in for a surprise. The head of the orphanage called me to his office, and I saw Selena Sunny again. Congratulations, Violet, you have a new home. Did I win the lottery? Very funny. No, Miss Sunny wants to adopt you. What? I looked at the singer incredulously. Ma'am, are you sure? I'm a bad luck charm. Don't you want to choose another child? No, Violet, I want to make you happy. Did the famous singer really want to adopt me? Wow, I pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Then nothing happened. I packed my things. Melanie caught up to us by the door when we were leaving. Violet, I'm so happy for you. Listen, why don't you take Lucky with you? She handed me the puppy she had been hiding behind her back. Sooner or later, we'll get caught and he needs a home. Miss Sunny, can Lucky come with us? Of course, the more the merrier. I hugged Melanie, took the puppy, and headed towards my new life. The singer's mansion was beautiful and huge. It reminded me of those fancy houses I built while playing The Sims. But of course, it wouldn't be me if I hadn't accidentally broken a glass statue. That was it. I was sure Miss Sunny would blow up on me, but to my surprise, she only laughed good-naturedly. Don't worry, Violet. I've been meaning to throw that statuette away anyways. Phew, had I finally found a home I wouldn't be kicked out of? That would be great. The next few weeks were amazing. Miss Sunny pampered me and brought me along to all her shoots and interviews. We spent every minute together, and I felt loved and cared for. But every Friday, something strange would happen. Selena bought white lilies and left for the whole day. She always looked sad when she came back. One evening, I called Melanie and told her that Lucky and I were doing great. You should come over. I'll show you my new home. I'd love to. Is tomorrow okay? We agreed to meet the next day. Mr. Olaf called me next. Violet, I found out you were adopted by that pompous singer Selena. I don't trust her. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm really happy here, but if you want to check up on me, you can come over tomorrow. He agreed and came the next morning. To my annoyance, he brought his nasty son along. I hadn't seen Klaus in several years, and to be honest, I hadn't missed him one bit. The bad luck charm seems to be doing well. My name is Violet, or is that too hard to remember for someone with a brain as tiny as yours? We started fighting like cats and dogs. Meanwhile, Mr. Olaf glared at Selena. There was tension in the air. Luckily, Melanie arrived next and lit up the world around her with her smile again. We all had lunch together, and then Mr. Olaf asked to talk to Miss Sunny in private. Alright. Kids, leave us for a minute. I shrugged and said I would give Melanie and Klaus a tour of our house. My friend looked around with fascination, but Klaus reminded me why I couldn't stand him. If I were you, I wouldn't be so happy. That singer doesn't love you. I bet she only adopted a poor orphan for good PR. Klaus showed me articles on the internet praising Selena for adopting an abandoned girl, but I knew he was just trying to hurt me. Shut up, Klaus. You're getting on my nerves. Oh, I'm shaking in my boots. What's in here? I don't know. Miss Sunny forbid me from going in there. Well, she didn't forbid me, did she? He pushed the door open and walked inside. Curiosity got the better of me, and Melanie and I followed him. We found ourselves in a kid's room. It looked like a princess lived in it. There was a doll and the Sleeping Beauty book lying on a pink 4-poster bed inside. To be honest, it all looked a bit weird. Klaus laughed and twirled his fingers at his temple. Selena Sunny isn't all there, huh? I wanted to snap back at him, but then we heard raised voices in the living room and hurried back. Mr. Olaf and Selena were shouting at each other. I've had enough. Security, escort this man off the premises. What? Don't touch me. I'm leaving. Mr. Olaf stormed off in a huff. Klaus ran after him. I asked Miss Sunny what happened, but she wasn't in the mood to talk. Melanie stayed over and we had a pajama party. We went to the kitchen to get some snacks late at night, and I heard a noise coming from that princess room. When we peeked in, we saw Miss Sunny reading the Sleeping Beauty fairy tale to that doll. Then she kissed her and covered her with a blanket. Sweet dreams, my princess. Melanie and I exchanged puzzled glances. Okay, this is getting creepy. I think it's cute. My friend and I watched videos on the Private Diary channel and ate chips late into the night. As soon as I saw Melanie off the next morning, I got a call from Klaus. I know something that will really blow your mind. Really? Really? I overheard my parents talking. Selena Sunny caused the accident that killed your parents. She probably gave a bribe to the police to go free. Stop talking nonsense. You're lying to make me mad. If you don't believe me, ask Mr. Poe. I didn't want to think about his words any longer and hung up. Then I went to Selena's room to ask for permission to go out. When I walked in, she was covering up a small scar on her face with concealer and clearly wasn't expecting to see me. Oh, don't worry. I got into an accident a few years ago. That's how I got this scar. Wait, had Klaus been telling the truth? Selena could have gotten that scar in the accident that killed my parents. Holy cow! I needed to get to the bottom of it. It was time to find Mr. Poe and get some answers. Is it true that Selena Sunny was driving the car that crashed into my parents? How did you find out about that? Did she tell you that herself? Oh no! Was it true then? I was adopted by the person responsible for the death of my parents? At that moment, Mr. Poe got a call. Wait for me here. I need to answer this, but we'll talk as soon as I'm done. He stepped aside, and I stood there, frozen with shock. Tears blurred my vision, and I had a lump in my throat. I couldn't stay there, so I ran into the street without waiting for Mr. Poe to finish his conversation. At first, I wandered around the city for a long time, trying to recover from the shock, and then my feet led me to Mr. Olaf's house. All my relatives have abandoned me. I'll ask him to adopt me instead of Miss Sunny. But to my shock, he was cold and rude to me when I came to his place. I don't care about you anymore. Please, I can't live with her. But Mr. Olaf just slammed the door in my face. Had he turned his back on me because he was afraid I would bring him bad luck? As I was leaving, I took one last look at the house and saw Klaus in the window. He was looking back at me and seemed sad. I didn't know where to go. I didn't want to go back to Miss Sunny. Returning to the orphanage wasn't an option either. They'd just call Selena. Miss Sunny was to blame for all my problems. I wanted to punish her for that. But how? After all, I was just a kid, and she had a lot of connections and money. It all made me feel so gutted when I sat down right on the street and burst into tears. At that moment, Melanie called me, and I told her everything I had found out. I ran away from home. I'd rather live on the street. I'll spend the night in the alley behind the mall and try to figure something out tomorrow. I hope Lucky is going to be okay. Melanie tried to say something, but I turned off the phone so no one could find me. It started to rain in the evening. I tried to hide in a box, but the cardboard quickly got wet. And then I saw 3 people step out of the darkness towards me. A shiver ran down my spine. They could be criminals. I closed my eyes in fear, and when I opened them, I saw Melanie, Mr. Poe, and Miss Sunny in front of me. What are you doing here? We couldn't find you, so we called Melanie. I'm sorry, I was worried about you, so I told them where to find you. Miss Sunny tried to hug me, but I pulled away. Don't touch me! It's your fault I'm an orphan! Selena looked down and sadly said, we need to talk. But first, let me show you something. We got into Miss Sunny's car and drove to a hospital. There was a girl lying in one of the wards. Next to her were white lilies in a vase. This is my daughter, Lily, my sleeping beauty. Selena sat down on the bed. Tears glistened in her eyes. I was frozen in place. That was the last thing I expected. What's with her? She's in a coma. The reason for that accident was bad weather. No one was to blame. I got off with a scar, but my daughter... Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry too. You lost your parents in that accident. And then Selena told me something that turned my world upside down. After the accident, Miss Sunny secretly opened a bank account that I would only be able to use after I turned 16 and deposited a large sum into it. I knew you had a lot of relatives and hoped they would be able to take good care of you. So I was shocked when I found out you were living in an orphanage. That's when I decided to adopt you and make you happy. It's the truth, Violet. This accident took away the people we loved most. We need each other. I was so overwhelmed I burst out crying and threw my arms around Selena. I let go of my pain and decided to finally be happy. So are you staying with Miss Sunny, or do I need to find you another family? I'm staying. I found my home. Selena and I grew even closer. After a while, I asked her why she fought with Mr. Olaf. He demanded I give up custody of you because he wanted to become your guardian himself. I immediately realized he wanted to get his hands on the money I put in your account, so I told that bastard he wouldn't be able to use it anyways. Now I knew why Mr. Olaf had been so rude to me and said he didn't care about me anymore. One day, Melanie and I were doing homework together when Klaus came over and asked if we could talk. All of those bad things that happened to your relatives were part of my father's plan. He's the reason you ended up in an orphanage. What? He wanted your relatives to give up custody of you so that he could adopt you and get your money. He was furious Miss Sunny beat him to adopting you when you were finally sent to the orphanage. It all made sense now. I wasn't a trouble magnet. A vile and greedy man just messed with my life. I'm sorry for calling you a bad luck charm, Violet. I didn't know it was all my father's fault. I don't want to be like him. I told you it was nonsense. You don't bring bad luck. The three of us became best friends. I stayed with Selena, and we often visited her daughter in the hospital together. Miss Sunny was reading Lily her favorite fairy tale during one of our visits when I saw Lily's hand move. Mom, look! That gave us hope Lily would wake up one day. Oh, I'm sorry. I called you Mom. I'm glad you did. Now I have 2 daughters. You know what I realized? Good people shine the brightest when times are dark, and misfortune sometimes brings people closer.
Hi, I'm Mandy from San Francisco. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. My parents told me ever since I was a child that I was too kind. Take the money and go buy groceries at the supermarket.
Look at my poor leg, spare a coin.
Here, take it.
I hit the jackpot.
As I was walking home, I saw a box of kittens. You poor things, who left you here? I asked you to get groceries, not kittens. I gave the money to a homeless man, and these kittens needed help. Ah, get off of me. Isn't he cute?
I'm allergic to cats.
Put them back where you found them. I couldn't just leave the kittens on the street. Instead, I put up posters and talked to our neighbors. Soon enough, I found owners for the kittens. I found new owners for the kittens. I started to realize my family was a bit weird. We never had any guests over, and my parents were hardly ever home. One day, I went to bed before they got back from work. A rustle woke me up. Is there something on the roof? When 2 dark silhouettes appeared outside my window, my blood ran cold and I screamed, "Hush!
It's us.
Mom? Dad? Shh! Are we going somewhere? Get ready and don't ask any more questions." Early in the morning, we left our home through the back door and got into our car. Soon, we stopped next to some sort of building. Wait for us here.
We'll come back for you soon.
I waited for my parents for such a long time, I started shaking with cold. When will they come back?
Girl, what are you doing here?
I'm waiting for my parents. They promised to come back for me soon.
This is an orphanage. Your parents abandoned you. You're going to live here from now on.
That's not true. My parents didn't abandon me. I was sure there had been some sort of mistake and kept waiting for my mom and dad to come back. She's so weird. She still believes someone will come for her. I spent a whole month at the orphanage before I got tired of waiting and decided to act. Something must have happened to Mom and Dad. I'll go to our house and get to the bottom of it. I waited for the right moment and sneaked out of the orphanage. Back then, I had no idea how huge San Francisco was. I think we took a turn there? Soon, I got lost and found myself in an unfamiliar neighborhood. It was dark and I was scared. Then it started to rain and I hid in an abandoned building. Mom, Dad, where are you? Before I knew it, I'd fallen asleep and slept till morning. I'm so cold and hungry. As I wandered around the city, I still hoped to find my way home. Then, all of a sudden, I heard a scream. Somebody help! I ran toward the voice and saw a woman in an Indian sari. Please, help me! I ran up to her and tried to scare the dog away. Stop! Bad dog! dog! Go away!
Where did the kid come from? Jack, quiet!
You're filming a movie? We are, sweetie, but thanks for trying to help.
Freya, it was a great take. We're using it.
Freya treated me to hot tea and cakes. What were you doing here anyway? Where are your parents? When I told Freya my story, she suggested I go home with her. I agreed because I didn't want to go back to the orphanage. Wow, you have such a beautiful house. I'm glad you like it. Miss Brown, please set the table for us. Will you help me find my parents? We'll go to your house tomorrow morning. You can stay here tonight. It was the best dinner I had that month. But then I was woken up in the middle of the night by a strange noise. It sounded like someone in the house was groaning. My heart sank and I slid under the covers to block out the sound. I guess it was just a dream. As promised, Freya brought me to my old home.
Sorry, I bought this house a month ago. I don't know anything about the previous owners.
What am I supposed to do now? Don't worry. We'll find out more about your parents. You can stay with me until we find them. Thank you so much. You're welcome, sweetie. Freya called the orphanage and told them I wasn't going back there. A few days later, she managed to find out what happened to my mom and dad. They got into an accident. I'm so sorry, Mandy, but they're not coming back. I tried really hard not to cry, but couldn't help it. You can stay with me if you want. I'd be happy if you did. Soon, Freya adopted me. After that, she always introduced me as her daughter. She seemed like a beautiful fairy to me. After a while, I went to a new school.
Hey, did you eat buns all night again?
He probably found his ugly sweater in the trash. Leave him alone.
Is she your girlfriend? Get lost.
When the bell rang, I stayed in the hallway. Don't mind them. By the way, I like your sweater.
Nah, I know it's ugly. I live with my grandma. She chose it. I'm Rob, by the way.
Rob, like me, had no parents. It brought us closer, and we became fast friends. At first, the other kids made fun of me for it, but I stood up for myself, and soon they left us alone.
Ready for an adventure? I found a new cache.
I hope you recognize that cutie. Rob had changed a lot in the past 7 years. You know I'm always ready. Rob and I got really into geocaching. We used GPS to look for caches with treasure. That evening, we found a new geocache and then hung out in my room and revised for a biology test. All of a sudden, we heard a crash. Miss Brown? What was that? I was cleaning the library and dropped some books.
It sounded more like you dropped a piano.
That night, I was woken up by an eerie noise. It sounded like a groan. I think I heard it before. The first night I slept here. As soon as I came out into the hallway, the sound stopped, but I heard muffled voices. It's your responsibility. This better not happen again. I'm sorry. I'll be more careful. I didn't understand what they were talking about and couldn't stop thinking about their conversation the next day.
You okay?
When I told Rob about the talk I'd overheard, he was very surprised.
Don't you think that's weird? First the crash, then the weird conversation?
Did Miss Brown break something valuable?
Why would your mom tell her off in the middle of the night, though?
When I got home, I decided to do my homework in the garden. That's when I noticed a drawing in the bushes. It's me and Rob. Do you know who might have drawn this? Miss Brown likes drawing. She must have drawn you two. She is an artist? Who would have thought? Yes, it's my work. For some reason, I didn't believe her. When I got to school, I showed the drawing to Rob.
Do you really think your housekeeper drew this?
I don't know what to think. Miss Brown and Freya have been acting weird, though. A few days after that, a strange noise woke up again. At first, it sounded like a groan, and then it was like someone was knocking. It was so creepy. In the morning, Freya left for work. It was going to be just me and Miss Brown for a few days. I hear those sounds every night. It freaks me out. I wanted to ask Miss Brown to make some tea for us. Rob and I called her and went through all the rooms, but the housekeeper was nowhere to be found. Then, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Someone was coming down from the second floor. Miss Brown, where have you been? I dozed off in my room.
We were in her room. Miss Brown was not there.
I don't like any of this.
I could stay here for the night.
That's a great idea. Rob pretended to leave, but sneaked back into my room after Miss Brown had gone to bed. Please tell me I'm not going crazy and you can hear it too.
I can, and I think someone's knocking again.
We tiptoed out into the hallway, but just like last time, the noise soon stopped. Then, Miss Brown suddenly walked by us like a gloomy shadow. Is she having a late dinner?
I doubt that.
The next day, Rob's grandma dragged him to an exhibition and we had to pause our investigation.
Grandma owns the exhibition center. I have to be there. Sorry.
Don't worry, I'll see you tomorrow. After hanging up, I suddenly noticed a drawing lying in the grass. My heart immediately started pounding. Did you draw this too? I did. Why does Freya look like a witch? It was one of her roles. I didn't believe Miss Brown. Our housekeeper was obviously hiding something. To get my mind off things, I decided to go for a walk. Mandy! At first, I didn't understand who called me, but then Then I saw my parents.
We finally found you.
I was so shocked I couldn't utter a word. We are so sorry, sweetie. 7 years ago, we got in trouble and had to leave the country. We recently got back and saw you in a movie. That's how we found out you were adopted by a famous actress.
We came back to fix everything.
Are you freaking serious? You've been gone for 7 years. Why did you abandon me? We didn't. We thought about you every minute. I don't know about that, but I do know you weren't there for me.
I know it's hard for you to forgive us, but please give us another chance.
I felt conflicted. In the end, I gave them my phone number and left in a passing taxi. I desperately wanted to talk to someone, and there was only one person I could turn to.
Mandy?
Rob, come look at this piece of abstract art.
Later, Grandma. I'm so glad you're here. I know what that knocking sound was. It's Morse code. I managed to decode it. Someone's locked up in your house. They were asking for help. It all makes sense now. Miss Brown must have been bringing them food at night on that tray.
That's crazy. Why would anyone be locked up in my house?
We need to search all the rooms again.
Okay, that's not why I'm here though. I saw my parents today. I talked to Rob and he cheered me up.
Of course, it's weird that they haven't been around for so long, but I think you should see them again.
I took his advice. When Mom called me, I agreed to see them the next day. Thank you for coming.
We won't let you down again.
This is for you. We spent the whole day together. It felt like I was a kid again. I guess they were right about me being too kind because I found it in myself to forgive them. In the evening, they brought me home. Freya just got back from the shoot. Mandy, what's going on? These are my parents. I know who they are. Have they told you why they abandoned you yet?
That's none of your business.
Of course it is. Mandy, I didn't want to traumatize you when you were a kid, but it's time for you to hear the truth. Your parents are scammers. 7 years ago, they abandoned you and tried to hide from the police, but were caught anyway. They spent all these years in prison. What? I can't believe it. Here's proof. Before I adopted you, I hired a detective and found out everything. So that's why you were acting so weird when I was a kid. You were hardly ever at home. And you also climbed into my room through the window. I guess deep down, I always knew my parents were criminals. I just didn't want to believe it.
We made a mistake, but we've already paid for it.
We can start over. I need some time alone. When Freya left for the shoot the next morning, Rob came over. Because of my parents, I completely forgot that we had agreed to search the house again.
I text Miss Brown. She thinks she'd won a day at a spa. We have a couple of hours before she figures it out and gets back here.
She seriously fell for it?
We're lucky she's so naive.
Rob and I searched every corner of the house but couldn't find anything suspicious. Here's where I found those drawings. Do you think it means something?
I'm not sure yet.
I looked up and suddenly noticed something strange. Hey, look over there. See that little barred window?
Which room is it?
That's exactly the thing. There's no room with such a window. I just realized that the second floor looks bigger from the outside than from the inside.
Are you saying there's a secret room in the house?
Let's hope there's no basilisk in it. We went back up to the second floor and walked into the closet where Miss Brown kept all the cleaning supplies.
I think there's something here.
It's a door.
Can I borrow your hairpin? Learning how to open all these caches is really paying off.
When we walked inside, we saw a girl. She was sitting on the floor surrounded by a lot of drawings. Don't be afraid. We won't hurt you.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
The girl grabbed a piece of paper and quickly started to write. My name is Nora. I was born deaf and mute. Freya is my mom. She is obsessed with harmony and beauty. When I was born, she was horrified and hid me from everyone. At first, we lived separately, but then the journalist started to suspect something, so Mom built this room to keep me close.
What the heck?
Nora says Freya only adopted me so that people would stop spreading rumors about her daughter. She then sent Nora away again, but recently some people got wind of Nora's existence and Freya brought her back here. Miss Brown has been looking after and teaching Nora.
Nora tried to get our attention with her knocking and drawings. She's tired of being locked up and wants to live a normal life.
Those groans. You were trying to talk to us, weren't you? How could Freya do this to her own child? That's monstrous. The next moment, we heard footsteps outside the door. Miss Brown, how could you let this happen? Why is Mandy here? I've got a better question. Why is Nora locked up here? Honey, I love you. You know that? You are my real daughter. Nora is just the biggest mistake I ever made. I was disgusted by Freya's words. It was only at that moment I saw the monster that was hiding behind the mask of a beautiful fairy. You're finished. Mom? Dad? What are you doing here?
After coming back in town, we found out your dirty little secret.
Now, why don't you leave part of your fortune to Mandy and give her back to us? We will adopt her and get the money.
If you don't, the whole world will find out about your Chamber of Secrets.
Is that the only reason you came back? To blackmail Freya and take her money? You know the three of you are a lot alike. You all used me.
Look, the police are here.
Where? Nora and I ran out like bats out of hell, and Rob soon caught up to us.
You can't go home. Let's go to my place.
What on earth is wrong with you?
Nora?
When Rob's grandmother found out what happened, she called the police. Freya was in deep trouble. She was fired from the movie. I stayed with Rob and his grandmother for a while. Thanks to them, Nora got into a school for teenagers like her. Nora recently presented her paintings at an exhibition. Rob fell for her and they became an item. I got into college and moved to campus. My parents never changed their ways and were soon arrested again. Freya bribed the police and got off lightly, but had to forget about an acting career.
Hi, I'm Annie. Mom and Dad abandoned me and my sister. We ended up in an orphanage when we were only a few days old. I found a way to live with it, but Roxy was different. She wouldn't let anyone except me close. She often threw temper tantrums. Our teachers didn't know what to do with her. I was the only one who could get her to calm down. I don't want to eat your nasty porridge. If you don't eat, I'll grow up and you'll stay small. Okay, I'll eat. Let's draw Mr. Funny after that. Mr. Funny was Roxy's imaginary friend. She could spend hours drawing that creepy clown.
I don't think anyone will want to adopt Roxy. Now, Annie is the perfect child. So smart and obedient.
A lot of the couples that came to the orphanage wanted to adopt me, but only me. Nobody liked Roxy. They thought she was weird. I knew my sister would be lost without me, and I acted up so people would change their minds about adopting me. Ugh, they have nuts in them. I hate nuts.
We're not ready for this.
Like any child at the orphanage, I wanted to be adopted by good people, but I didn't want to be separated from my sister. One day when we were 7, wonderful people came to the orphanage. Mr. and Mrs. Cooper wanted to adopt both of us.
You have a family now, girls. Your older sister, our daughter, is waiting for us at home.
They lived in a nearby town, so that's where we went. Unfortunately, when we were on the way, the thing I was most afraid of happened. Roxy threw a temper tantrum. I forgot her drawings of Mr. Funny at the orphanage. Shh, don't start. You can always draw new ones. No, I need those. She started kicking our adoptive parents' seats. We had to get off the bus a few stops earlier than we were supposed to because of my sister's antics.
It's really coming down. Let's hide from the rain here. I'll buy Roxy a balloon. Do you think that will cheer you up?
I don't know.
I'll be right back. Oh, I have his wallet. Girls, wait here. I'll be quick, okay?
We kept waiting, standing there in the rain like abandoned kittens. People and cars kept passing us by, but no one cared about 2 freezing children. They abandoned us, just like our birth parents. This wouldn't have happened if Roxy hadn't thrown a fit. I got mad, but I didn't say anything to my sister. Soon, it got dark, and I realized Mr. and Mrs. Cooper weren't coming back.
Who do we have here? 2 lost angels?
The man that approached us looked remarkably like Roxy's imaginary friend. Her eyes lit up as soon as she saw him. Mr. Funny, you're real! You're here to take us away to your magic circus, right?
Actually, my name is Mr. Barnes, but you can call me whatever you want. What are you doing here all alone?
Our new parents abandoned us right after adopting us.
So you have nowhere to go? How unfortunate. I let abandoned children stay with me. There's plenty of space at my home. Do you want to come with me?
Yes!
Let's go then.
No, let's go to the police. They'll take us back to the orphanage. I'm not going back there. Mr. Funny will take care of us now. I didn't trust that man, but I couldn't leave my sister either. Mr. Barnes had a big but ugly house. We saw his wife and a bunch of children of different ages when we walked in.
I found 2 more orphans. These little angels are Annie and Roxy. Well, everyone's welcome here. Guys, let's show them how well we work together.
The children set the table and we sat down to have dinner. Everything looked delicious. I was so hungry, I could have eaten an elephant.
Holy heck. It's like you have a black hole where your stomach should be. I'm Danny. Welcome home.
Thanks. What is this place?
It's a home for abandoned children. Mr. and Mrs. Bars take care of those who have nowhere else to go.
I looked around. All the children looked happy and seemed to feel safe there. Most importantly, Roxy finally looked happy. I decided we could stay in the abandoned children's home. However, the next morning, I learned an important lesson. Nothing in life is free.
Get up. It's time to work.
What? But we're children.
You ate a lot of food yesterday, Annie. Do you think it appeared in the fridge by magic? Everyone should contribute to help us earn money.
Mr. Barnes brought me, Roxy, and Danny to a house.
It's time for you girls to learn about our family business. Danny will teach you. Follow my lead.
Hello, children.
Good morning, ma'am. Our school choir is raising money for charity.
After that, Danny started singing a children's song. Roxy and I exchanged a surprised glance, but joined him. Oh, that was wonderful. Here, you've earned it. As soon as we left the house, Mr. Barnes caught up to us.
Well done. They didn't suspect a thing.
Wait, did you just rob them?
Works like a charm. While innocent children are distracting the house owners, I get inside and find something of value.
This is wrong.
We're just trying to survive in this huge world, baby. Let's go. We need to visit all the houses in this neighborhood today.
Roxy, I can't do this. Remember? Everyone turned their backs on us, but these people accepted us into their family. We should be grateful and live by their rules.
I didn't agree with Roxy, but I couldn't leave her alone, even if it meant following her down a dark path.
That evening, all the children came back home and put everything they'd earned during the day on the table. Some of the kids begged on the street, and some stole wallets from passerby in the central city square. That's what Mr. and Mrs. Barnes called a family business.
Do you have a problem with what we're doing, Annie?
I might be a kid, but I know that stealing is bad.
Well, you always have a choice. You could ask the police to send you back to the orphanage, but then you'll have to say goodbye to your sister. And you don't want that, do you?
I don't. But I don't want to steal either. Is there any other way I could contribute?
You could help me around the house.
I was fine with that. A couple of days later, Mr. Barnes asked me to go grocery shopping, and I met someone interesting. Wait, you lost your bracelet.
Thank you. I've already lost something important lately.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. If you have nowhere to go, I know a place.
What's your name?
Annie.
I'm Sophie. Don't worry, Annie. I'm moving to Chicago to live with my aunt tomorrow. You're a very kind girl. Never change. Keep my bracelet as a memento.
2 years flew by. Roxy adored Mr. and Mrs. Barnes and did her best to get money for them. Meanwhile, I basically became a maid. Chores were more or less all I did, day in and day out. But I liked to walk past the local school and look at the children who went there. I wish I could be like them. One evening, I plucked up the courage and I asked Mr. Barnes when Roxy and I would go to school.
Never. You don't have any papers, and we don't want anyone to start asking questions. Why would you even want to go to school? You already have a job. That's right. No one in this house goes to school. You shouldn't stand out.
But I wasn't going to keep living like that forever. While everyone was asleep, I was teaching myself how to read. So far, I could only read syllables, but I didn't give up. Are you studying again? I am. Please don't tell anyone. Stop thinking you're better than us. These stupid books are useless. Roxy couldn't have been more wrong. Books carried me away to a magical land, away from the terrible reality. I kept practicing, day by day. Fresh pastries.
Can you believe this? She reads like a 5-year-old. Oh, we've gotta post this. How about we film me breaking your nose, huh? Are you okay?
Yeah, this was embarrassing.
Those kids are from a different world. They'll never understand us. Don't try to become one of them. You're in over your head.
However, that incident only made me study harder. A couple more years went by. Reading books under the covers was no longer enough for me. I wanted to go to school. All that was left was to figure out how to do it, and I did it. I've been baking these cupcakes all night. I want to be more useful, so I'm gonna sell them.
I like your new attitude.
In fact, I just needed an excuse to leave home for the whole day. I gave the cupcakes to the first homeless man I saw and walked straight to school. Luckily, no one paid me any mind. I blended into the crowd and I hid in a random classroom. And now I wait for the classes to start. I was interested in everything the teacher was saying. To my surprise, the other children didn't seem as eager to study and were being very noisy.
Nice one. Bobby, quiet. We're starting a new topic.
He's as dumb as a doorknob. After the classes came to an end and everyone left the classroom, I finally got out of the closet. Someone forgot their phone.
Where did I leave my phone? Hey, guys, you're not gonna believe it. That weirdo broke into school and stole my phone.
What? That's not true.
Get her.
Like a ninja, I left the school through the window and ran away from Bobby and his minions. They were much faster than me, but I knew that Danny and Roxy would be robbing passerbys right in the city square at that time of day, so I headed there.
What kind of cowards are you to chase a girl around like this? Oh, look at this wannabe knight in shining armor. Control your girlfriend. I'll make her regret being born if I see her again. What happened?
I told him the truth. Danny frowned when he found out I'd gone to school.
I won't snitch on you, but quit doing dumb things.
I think studying can open a lot of doors for us.
Open your eyes. We're just unwanted children. We don't have a future.
Danny's words gutted me, but that was just the beginning. That evening, everyone put the money they'd earned on the table again. Mr. and Mrs. Barnes didn't think it was enough.
Annie, where's your cupcake money?
I didn't sell them. Stray dogs took them. She's lying! While we were all out making money for the family, Annie was hanging out at school. That's right, she went there to study.
What? How dare you break the rules of our house? You're not getting any dinner tonight, you ungrateful girl.
They screamed like plucked peacocks for a long time, but it was my sister's betrayal that brought tears to my eyes.
Are you crying?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not good at comforting girls, but you're right. We could be more than a bunch of thieves. I'll get us money and we'll get out of here. I promise.
At least Danny was on my side. The next morning, I was about to start all my chores as usual, but Mr. Barnes suddenly said I'd be helping him to rob houses.
Danny ran away last night, and now we don't have enough people. That little brat. Whatever, we'll just find another homeless kid.
I don't know what upset me more, that Danny ran away without me, or that the Barnes didn't care enough to find out what happened to him. Roxy, it's time for us to get out of here. Why? This is our home.
Don't be a blind duck. The Barnes don't like any of us. We're just free labor for them.
But they gave us a roof over our heads. No one else cared about us. Even Mr. and Mrs. Cooper abandoned us. I've been biting my tongue for years, but enough is enough. They abandoned us because of you. My whole life went downhill because of you.
If I'd just left you, I would have been adopted by good people ages ago.
Oh, is that how it is? Fine, then leave. I don't need to be looked after anymore because I have parents. We had to put our fight on hold because Mr. Barnes demanded I come with him.
Does everyone remember the plan? You pretend to be a school choir, and I sneak in and rob them. Now, which house should we start with? That one's long abandoned. We won't go there. Now this one seems promising. Follow me.
I'd had enough. I fell behind, broke the window of that abandoned house, and climbed inside. I'll stay here for a few days until I figure out what to do next. Early the next morning, I was woken up by a strange noise. I looked out the window and saw a van pulling up to the house. Movers started pulling furniture out of the van and carrying it into the house. I freaked out and decided to hide in the attic until they'd left. Soon, I got bored and opened a box full of dusty things. Inside it was an old photo album of the family that used to live in the house that I'd broken into. That's Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, and this is probably their daughter. Wait, I've met her too. That's Sophie. I was so lost in thought, I leaned on a hat rack and it fell to the floor with a loud crash.
I heard a noise. Is anyone here? Who are you? Wait, that bracelet. I remember you. You're Annie.
I also recognized the grown-up Sophie and eagerly told her my story from beginning to end. Your parents adopted me and my sister, but they abandoned us that very day.
So you're one of those girls. Annie, there's something you need to know. On that rainy day, my parents were hit by a car. Unfortunately, they didn't survive.
What? My heart sank. I suddenly remembered the police cars and ambulances that drove past us all those years ago. So that's what happened. Mr. and Mrs. Cooper didn't abandon us. They died.
The police found the adoption papers, but you two disappeared without a trace. Now I know you lived with those Barnes bastards. After Mom and Dad died, I moved to Chicago. I grew up, got married, and decided to move into my parents' old house with my husband.
Sophie was moved by my story about the abandoned children's home. That same day, she went to the police with her husband, and the Barnes were arrested. All the children were sent to an orphanage. Everyone was on cloud 9. Everyone except Roxy. What have you done, you idiot? We'll have to go back to the orphanage because of you.
No, you won't. My parents wanted to welcome you into our family, and I'll fulfill their wish. Annie, Roxy, my husband and I are adopting you.
For a while, my sister refused to accept it, but then, surrounded by the love of our new adoptive parents, she flourished and turned from a prickly cactus into a beautiful rose. I finally got to go to school. Sitting at the desk made me feel like the happiest child in the world. I didn't even care about Bobby's dumb threats.
Smile while you can. I'll teach you a lesson after school.
I also thought about Danny a lot. I wondered where he was and if he was doing all right. After classes, Bobby and his friends cornered me again.
Your knight won't save you now. That's where you're wrong. I'll always watch over Annie. Don't you dare mess with her or you'll regret it. This is not over.
Danny, where have you been?
I ran away to earn money and come back for you, but the cops caught me and sent me to an orphanage. I like it there. I go to a different school, but it's not far from here. And I heard that you and Roxy are doing well too.
Yeah, we were adopted. Of course. I knew Bobby wouldn't leave us alone. Moreover, I'd probably get in trouble or get grounded or get detentions. But all children go through that. Even you. And you too. Learn to treasure the simple things in life, guys. There are a lot of children in the world who can only dream of them.